If you haven't been creating at the scale or dedication that you really aspire to, this is exactly how you shift that and start creating to your fullest creative expression. You know that you're capable of creating incredible things in your own unique way, but we can get to these ruts and in these points where we can't quite put our finger on what it is that has to change. And so you get stuck in this stagnancy of your creative expression, of not sharing in the ways that you want to and not exactly sure of the next direction for you to take. This all stops now. In this episode of Big Creatrix Energy, I'm sharing 3 things that you can start doing today that will have you creating more in the ways that only you can. Okay, so let's get right to it. The first thing that you absolutely need to do to get into your own power of expressing your fullest creative expression is to believe in your potential, to believe that you have the ability to create incredible things that you are going to love and that other people are going to love. This means you stop wasting 80% or more of your energy worrying whether it's the right idea or it's the right time or if you'll even be able to make it all happen. It means you stop worrying about whether you're good enough and using all of your time and energy going back and forth on the same doubts and insecurities. It means that you finally get out of your own way. The switch here is to go from being your own biggest hater to being your own biggest supporter. And you do this by paying attention to your thoughts when you're sitting down to create or when you have an idea of something that you want to do. How much of your time and energy are you spending doubting the possibilities, doubting whether you're the person to do it or if everybody else out there is doing it in a better way than you, and instead you shift your attention to doing what you can now, to starting, to understanding that you don't need to have the fullest picture. You don't even need to have all of the skills available to you right now to create and achieve the thing that you ultimately want to. But when you recognize that it's the pursuit, it's deciding that because this idea feels so good within you, because you so want to make it real, you let that dedication, that energy, and that enthusiasm you hold for it be enough. Let that be enough to propel you forward and to take action on the first available step, because you don't need to know the fullest, biggest 1,000-step plan of something to begin. You don't need to know where you're heading. All you need to believe in is your potential to do the next thing, to take the next available step, to use the resources that you have, to use the time that you have right now. And we can go in these circles, we can go in these loops with ourselves, right, where we have this big dream and you have this big vision, and because it feels so beautiful and precious and important to you, you put it up on this big pedestal and it feels out of reach. But the only way you can bring yourself to be the person who's capable of creating that thing is if you take inspired action from wherever you are right now. If you decide that you're going to use this as an opportunity to grow and to develop yourself and to stop sabotaging by thinking you have to have everything figured out before you begin and you have to be the perfect person. When you look to people whose work really inspires you, they are not perfect people either. They don't have everything figured out either, and they have absolutely been learning on the job. Every single project will give you new skills, new ideas, new possibilities that you will take into the next one. And if you keep waiting for yourself to be able to have already achieved your full potential before you begin, then it's never going to happen, because it happens in the pursuit. It happens in the process. All you have to do right now is to believe in your idea, to believe in your ability to learn and evolve and change through the process, pursuing your creative expression. And when we take it off the pedestal of these finished projects that we feel like have to be perfect before we take up our space enough to let anybody know that they're even your dreams, and instead you shift your perspective to Focusing on the satisfaction you'll get through the process of exploring your creative expression, then it not only becomes something that's more attainable because you can believe in your potential to explore your creative expression, but it also gives you satisfaction through the process. It becomes something that's enjoyable, and that means you're going to be way more likely to keep going, to stick to the plan, to keep improving, and you will grow yourself so much more than if you were waiting on perfection to even begin. Instead of doubting every single step and whether you have the ability to do the thing or not, start supporting yourself. Start paying attention to what thoughts come up when you're working on your projects, and make an active effort to tell yourself good things, to speak highly of yourself, to be encouraging of yourself, because putting yourself out there as a creative is a vulnerable experience. So you absolutely need to make sure that you at least are going to be a cheerleader for yourself from day one and forever and always throughout. And absolutely, you're going to have these ups and downs, you're going to have doubts, you're going to have insecurities through the process because you're only human. But whenever you can, give yourself the approval that it is that you crave, because when we share things, we ultimately want validation, we want people to see us, and if it comes initially from a place of you validating and seeing yourself and seeing the value in your creative expression and the value in the things that you have to share, then you're coming from a place of internal power and integrity. You're creating for yourself first and foremost. You're creating to satisfy your own need and desire to express yourself, and everything else becomes cherries on top. The second tip to develop your creative expression is to make it simple to create consistently. We all know consistency is the secret to success. As much as we can try and fight it and find workarounds and make excuses for ourselves, consistency is the ticket to continually improve. If you want to be able to do things at the dream level, at the way that you see these projects in your mind, the way that you see your own potential in your mind, to get to that requires your consistent growth, your consistent evolution, consistent skill building. There really is no workaround. And when we get down to it, consistency is really the easiest option. It means that you don't have to have this innate skill or this innate magic quality about you, but actually anything that you want to get good at, anything that you want to take your space at in the world, is a skill that you build through simply showing up for it again and again, through developing your abilities, through developing your style and your expression, through experimentation and showing up over and over again to work on these ideas, to work on developing your own skills. Your unique style, it isn't even a final destination. Even the biggest, most juicy project that you can imagine yourself creating right now, I guarantee as you start to make progress on that, as you complete that project, you will have already dreamt up a million other things that you want to create, because as humans, we are built to evolve. We are built to continually grow and to set ourselves new and bigger and sexier goals as we progress. So trying to pinpoint what your style is, what your creative expression is, what your point of success is only limiting yourself. And when you understand that it's this journey, it's this continual evolution of developing your style, then it becomes really obvious that of course, consistency is the route that gets you there, because it's just simply staying in the rhythm of working and progressing and developing. When you continually prioritize your creative practice, you evolve by default. It's not something that you have to force. It's not something you have to sit down and ask yourself what your brand is or what your unique selling point is. It's something that evolves organically in a way that cannot be copied or imitated by anybody else. It is entirely you, in the same way that your handwriting is entirely you, that the rhythm of your speech is entirely you. And consistency is the way, as a creative, you can continually fine-tune your style, continually get to know yourself and get to know how it is that you want to express yourself. So what does it actually look like to make it simple to create consistently? It's having your tools ready to go, proactively dedicating regular time to work on your creative practice. And it's also lowering your barrier to entry, stopping expecting yourself to create a masterpiece every single time you sit down to create anything, and instead let it be just another baby step along the way, another progression of you showing up and exploring your creative voice and a creative expression, and just seeing where it takes you. To stick to something, to be able to show up consistently, whether that's daily, whether that's weekly, it means you have to make it as simple as possible. You need to make it so it's excuse proof. And that might be setting up the goal to work 20 minutes a day or 5 minutes a day. And instead of telling yourself you're going to write 10,000 words, tell yourself you're just going to write 100 words, but you're going to do it every day. Make it really simple for you to build up on these baby blocks and to feel yourself making progress, to make it achievable for you to actually act on your creativity. And then the third and final way that you can develop your creative expression is to surround yourself with inspired people. For better or worse, energy is contagious. So the people that you're around, they contribute to who you are, every single aspect of your life. And we've all heard the saying of you are the average of the 5 people that you spend time with. I think this can get a little bit toxic and get a little bit like, let's cut all of these people out of our lives because they don't have the same visions as us. They don't have the same goals and dreams of us. I don't think that's necessarily even useful or relevant advice. When I think about the kind of energy and inspiration that I want to surround myself with, or the types of people who really deeply inspire me to create in ways that honestly kind of terrify me, those people aren't necessarily accessible. They aren't necessarily people that I can ensure I can spend the most of my day-to-day time with, but they are people who I can listen to their interviews, or I can read their books, or listen to their music and study the things that they have created. You don't have to have creative geniuses in your postcard or in your family tree to be able to get so much value from their presence in your life. I think the important thing to note here around seeking inspiration and surrounding yourself with inspired people, it's not about cutting people off in your life. It's not about being really ruthless and calling it boundaries. Instead, I think it's being really purposeful about what we consume and where we direct our attention and where we direct our time. You can have beautiful relationships with people in your life who have wildly different goals and aspirations to you. Most people in my life don't see the world the same way that I do, but I still love them and love hanging out with them and spending time with them. But I also know that I want to share my dreams with them carefully, or I don't necessarily need to ask them for approval or advice because we have different goals. We have different things that we're working towards. And so when I think about my creative expression and the things that I want to make and the way that I want to show up in the world, I'm being more conscious of the sources of inspiration that I'm allowing feed into those kind of spaces. And I'm being more conscious on whose advice and perspective I'm seeking when it comes to setting these big expanding goals for myself and the things that I create. So inspiration doesn't happen by accident, and it's really our jobs as creatives to go out and seek it. And if you have these big things that you want to create, if you have this desire for your own style of creative expression, then it is your responsibility to source out meaningful inspiration that's going to propel you along the journey, and to not just let it default to whatever happens to be on your social media feed for the day, but actually feed yourself with the things that you want to fuel you. Feed yourself with the type of ideas that you want to shape the things that come out of you, because what we put in comes out. So if you want to have your creative expression being a certain style or being a certain way, then it's your responsibility as the artist to be mindful about what you are feeding yourself in terms of inspiration. And I think it's really important to look outside of your own field of creation for inspiration. So don't necessarily look to people who are doing the same thing, but look to people whose energy inspires you, whose style, whose way of living speaks to you in some way, and is able to, you cross-pollinate all of these different sources of inspiration. And when you feed all of these different areas into the medium that you create with, that's when you make something new. That's when you hit on your true creative expression. Now, usually at the end of Big Creatrix Energy episodes, I tell you about the Creatrix Coven, which is my membership for creatives who want to prioritize making and being art. And I do want to tell you, you absolutely need to be in this membership, but we got some big changes happening and they're not live as this episode goes live. So hang tight, because if you've been thinking about being a creatrix, if you've only just heard about it now and you're like, wait, what is this? I want in, then stay tuned, because I have some very exciting things to share really, really soon. You can follow the Instagram page at the Creatrix Coven, and while you're there, follow me at Gabriella Rosie, and you'll be the first to know. I'll tell you all about it. If you want to prioritize creativity in a big way, let me just tell you, the Creatrix Coven is where it happens. It's the place for you to be. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please leave a comment and tell me what your takeaways are, how you're going to be actioning these things, and I will speak to you in the next one. Bye.